The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbal.
Yeah, we know it's important to get that sixth win. And, I think, we all want the same thing. But to answer your question, how we're going to keep that mentality is just focusing on one game, and not trying to jump ahead in the weeks or, overlooking, an opponent or that type of deal. That kind of already happened to us this year. And, and that starts this week. So, going to treat, the same great game preparation I did for last week against Ohio State, against UCLA Bruins. And I know the rest of the guys are going to do that as well. And it just comes down to, one-on-ones, our 11 guys going out there and competing against their 11 guys.
Back with you here at the Single Barrel inside the Graduate. I don't know when Billy D is going to be here, but he's kind of like, Sinatra. Maybe, right? He'll be here at some point. But, we have folks popping in. We're here at the Single Barrel inside the Graduate 9th and P, the weekend edition. Back with you noon to 2 today on Hail Varsity. And Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal, the Iron Horse, Gary Sharp is sliding in. Hope everyone's doing all right. Kind of a buzzworthy day today. I've seen a lot of Nebraska fans asking for and receiving Bloody Marys.
Yes.
There's been trips to the coffee pot, Elijah and Gary, and what is real, and you heard Ty Robinson talk about it here just as we opened the show up. He didn't feel in pressure, and I think that's a far cry from a year ago when we talk about that sixth win and beyond. And that's what's at stake today. It's the next game. It's the response after the response game, fellas, with Nebraska after the Indiana debacle, after the Ohio State outing, and now it is UCLA. By the way, Ohio State, their last two drives have looked unbeatable.
Yeah.
With misdirection, with run game, with shot plays, with defense, with offense, Elijah. Nebraska, hey, credit to the Big Red holding them to 21. It looks like Ohio State may score 21 this second quarter in Happy Valley.
Well, yeah, I think this brings up the question, what was Ohio State's care level last week? But you can't take away from the performance by Nebraska. I mean, that's a very, very good Ohio State team. And, I doubt the Huskers are sitting in the locker room watching this one, feeling themselves. That's what you want to avoid this week is that feeling of, oh, man, look how good we played Ohio State last week. We're going to walk in and just waltz right through UCLA. You can't have the mentality, so you kind of hope they're not paying attention because that's bit Nebraska before, not respecting their opponent, thinking that they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. Can't have that. But it is a testament to Nebraska, the performance they put out there last week. If they put together a similar performance today, Nebraska's going to be bowl eligible in roughly 6 hours.
Sharpie, how you doing?
Good. You know what? It feels different. Doesn't November, going into November, feel a little bit different?
Big time.
There's a lot of people here. Yeah, there's a lot of people here. I thought, Nebraska hasn't been home in a month, so I'm not worried that it won't be a great atmosphere. But I thought it might be a slow arriving crowd. There's a lot of people in downtown Lincoln
already.
All right, I like this. So this is a big day. I don't think, we have to deal with what is reality. And Nebraska hasn't been in bowl games since October 15th, 2016 was the last time they were bowl eligible. This is a big moment for this program because you got to start somewhere. And once you get to 6, then you can never go back. You are at 6, you've established it in year 2, and now you have fun with, okay, how many more can we get? But I think once you get 6, then you can kind of, you change your mindset a little bit on what you're chasing. But I feel better about Nebraska going in November than I did last year. One is the defense. I don't think the defense is worn out. They only faced 47 plays last week against Ohio State. So I think they're in a better spot. I think they have more depth. And I also think they learned lessons from last year. Now, I can't guarantee anything about the offense, but remember last year in the defense in November, they wore down. They couldn't get off the field. even though they never gave up like huge chunk points games.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, they just couldn't get off the field.
There was always one drive they couldn't stop.
Yep.
And they were great 99% of the time. But it was the one drive, the final drive against Maryland, the response drive at Michigan State where Sparty went back up, right? Because Nebraska led that game 7-3. And this defense, they've had a year. You've got an offense that's different because last year's offense was the way they scored was a big play, was a gash play. This year it's been sustained drives. It's been 7, 8, 9, 10 play drives to eventually get into the end zone if you get into the end zone. So it's a 180 that way. But this defense has remained stalwart. We'll see if the commitment to the run game continues into this month of November.
Well, I
love it. I mean, you've heard Deshaun Foster talk about it this week. Matt Rule's not come out and said it, but I think there is an energy within the program right now that they've had to kind of learn about the hard way, what you need each week, and to take that Monday through Friday. He's not worried about that, but all right, bring it on Saturday. And I think this is an energy ball game. Is UCLA going to, after a bit of a pause, going to come in feeling good after Rutgers? Is Nebraska going to play ticked off? They played ticked off against Ohio State because of their performance against Indiana, and they're ticked off. They didn't win the game in Columbus last Saturday. So how do they come out? And I was encouraged by what I heard, but I was a little more encouraged with what I saw last week, and I think it's gonna be a fun month.
Yeah, I said I wanted to see the response. I'm not worried about their Monday through Friday. I think Rule has gotten that taken care of. They just need results. What do you guys think if the first play on offense today is a screen pass that Rule trolls 90,000 people? I mean, I think that would be ideal.
I want it.
Not a check down into a screen, but an actually called like a bubble screen. Not a flare. Not a flare, run a bubble screen.
Then he'll call timeout and run out to the middle of that red end on the 50 and just say,
yes.
And he'll go Gladiator. Are you not entertained?
Well, it depends. It depends the result. If it goes for 10, you get the sarcastic cheer from Memorial Stadium.
If it's a gain, you're going to get a hey.
If it's a lot, if it's a loss, like say they lose 2 on it, the bottles will come flying from the section down.
Well, will people turn around and stare to the press box and give Satterfield? Because you remember, the last time Nebraska was home, we said, man, conditions aren't great. They scored 14. They still won. Look at how the vibe publicly, because there's always been murmurings, but the vibe publicly towards the OC has completely changed from the last time Nebraska was home. I will tell you one thing, that if they're going to continue to go to that well, a huge difference today is that Ramir is going to play.
It's a well from Flint, Michigan.
I think I actually, going back and watching through certain scenarios, I thought Nebraska had a good game plan on offense. I think there's stuff we won't know about what exact plays that Dylan checked into. Should we give him the keys to the car? All of that kind of stuff. But I think Nebraska had a fairly good game plan. I think it comes down to play choice. But if they're going to go back and try and run the screens, one, they got wide receivers that have no pride. That's about want to, getting out there and blocking. But I think Ramir being back in the lineup today, he's the most ideal guy on that roster to be involved in their screen game, and he wasn't there last week.
He's shifty. He can accelerate. And the last screenplay that worked went for about 36 against Rutgers.
Yep.
It was right out of the Andy Reid special.
Yep.
So Gary Sharp is here. Mark Kranak en route. Brandon Vogel from Counter Reed in about 15 minutes. We're down here at the Single Barrel till 2 o'clock. Get you ready for Nebraska and UCLA. Ohio State just missed one. They're up by 4. Minnesota leading in Champaign 3-0. It's a pillow fight between Rutgers and Northwestern. We have folks in the stream. Elijah's Soup Strainer has checked in. Crazy Spider Adventures is here. Rick back at it. Captain is here. Charles checks in. Tuck also. And a lot of these folks checked in at 7 a.m. Central. God love you. Thanks for being a part of it. Shane is here. Cliff from Florida. Win, baby, win. Big Al checks in. Just win. Nothing else matters. Fire up some Metallica. Eric Olson is here. Elijah, the other Elijah. The other Brian checks in. Sal in Omaha. We love you, Sal. Thanks for checking in. All right.
Brother.
Connor Bleeping Clark is here.
No way.
The voice
Yes.
of college basketball. What is up? Make an appearance on camera. The fans want to see you. He is wearing the vaunted 2013 Nebraska black shirt throwback.
Jordan Westerkamp is in the house.
He is.
We only remember the first half about that game.
Yes, we do. 21-3.
The second half went badly,
Uh-huh.
and then the next couple of days went really poorly.
Yes, they did. Thank you, Deadspin. How we doing? Great. Good. Are you
We're
drinking
okay.
fully yet?
Eh.
Okay. Connor is pacing himself. Good, man. Okay.
Bloody
Good-
Mary.
good to see
Someone ordered
What-
this man a Bloody Mary or a red
Bloody
beer.
Mary, scotch. What are we drinking? You're not a tomato guy. Okay. All
Vodka
right.
Red Bull.
Vodka Red Bull. Okay. Blackout juice it is. All right. Get him off the mat. I love it. Good to see you, bud. Thanks for coming by.
Hey, have a good season. I'll see you in a couple of months. Yes.
I love it. I love it. Good for Connor coming by. Mike is here. He checks in.
Do you want me to sit closer to you?
You can. That's my knee, Sharp. Black Hills Brennan is here. Now he moves away. I like it. Bruce from Spearfish checks in. Jim checks in. Jim's Magic 8 Ball says, can we overcome UCLA and SAT to go bowling? Jim's got a different word for SAT.
Who's a more popular OC in the house today? Eric Bieniemy, who, remember,
today.
yeah,
This day
today.
in 1990.
That's not good, because all I can remember is him and his little running mate, Mr. Hagan, laughing at the crowd. But it should be noted that he has come back in here since then and has lost. So he lost as a running back coach. But Eric Bieniemy is on UCLA's side, and Marcus Satterfield is on Nebraska's side.
We talked to Barney this week, Coach Barnett, and he's still close with Hagan, and he's close with Bieniemy, and it was pretty telling comment, Elijah and Sharpie, about just what Bieniemy wants to bring into that offensive meeting room. I mean, Gary said he's going to bring in some of that Nebraska-Colorado rivalry attitude to it, and I don't know that there's a playbook more so than there's plays for Bieniemy.
Yes.
And you have the Andy Reid influence. Didn't go great for him in Washington, but was far from all his fault. I mean, it's quick game, it's quick passes, it's tight ends, it's shotgun snap and get it out of your hand. So he'll have athletes there that work.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of surprised he's in college.
Well,
He's had a lot of shots too to be a head coach.
yeah,
and it's just
something
not
in the
worked
interview
out.
process has not gone right for him. And this was an opportunity to work with somebody who's familiar with. I don't know how long he sticks around in college. He just seems like an NFL guy to me.
Yeah.
But you brought up one key thing is UCLA is kind of tricky to play against if you're on defense, because they don't run a style.
No.
So they do what Kansas City does. They just kind of run plays. Like Kansas City has Mahomes, so they'll just select plays and they'll just run those plays. UCLA is trying to do the same thing. So it's not like they're going to run pet plays and, they're going to build on a scenario in a series. They're just going to randomly select plays. So sometimes it can get a little tricky. So that's why you got to get pressure. And that's why I also think Nebraska matches up well against UCLA. Garbers will throw the ball a lot. It's not raining yet in Lincoln. We don't know when it's going to start raining, but conditions will come into play. I think he'll throw the ball a lot because I don't think they can run the ball, and I don't think they want to commit to the run. And I think Nebraska will make them one-handed. It's just, what is Garber's completion percentage on that little dink and dunk, pitch and catch, move down the field, throw underneath, that kind of stuff, make Nebraska tackle in space. But I think Nebraska's ability to get home against not a great UCLA offensive line. And also, let's be honest, UCLA is -7 turnovers. Nebraska's +2. There will be a strip sack or a pick six or something. The ball will be on the ground or the ball will be intercepted today by Nebraska.
Can I ask a question really fast? As we discuss Eric Bieniemy, if you're Matt Rule and you're looking to make a coordinator change at the end of the year, do you give old Eric a call? The guy that coached Patrick Mahomes to 2 MVPs. I know there's a lot of hard feelings about Bieniemy, but hey, he did already coordinate an offense with normal Patrick Mahomes. How could he handle diet Patrick Mahomes?
I think Bieniemy's. I think he's talented.
You like that?
That is really good.
That
is really good.
But I think there's a lot of Andy Reid with Patrick Mahomes. Well, that's not to take anything away from Bieniemy.
Can we talk to the guy who watched Patrick Mahomes every single Sunday? I don't know. From an outsider's perspective, the Chiefs' offense has looked very different since Bieniemy has left.
It's been evolving.
Hey, now they've scored nearly 30 in straight weeks.
I'm not calling it bad. I'm saying how they score 30 has been different, though.
So they've shifted along. They're a far cry from 3 years
before Nebraska does anything offensively, whether they keep it status quo. Nebraska has to figure out what they want to be on offense. You know, one of the hardest things we see in college is getting the quarterback position fixed. Nebraska has the quarterback position fixed. They just need to decide what they want to be. Do they want to be a pro-style offense, or do they want to be a power running game? Because I don't think they have the personnel right now to do both, to meld them together. So I think they have to kind of make that decision in the offseason, which also will lead to, selling it to a Michael Terry, who is down to Texas and Nebraska, the 5-star wide receiver, or guys in the portal of, okay, we have Dylan Raiola. This is what we want to do. I think that's probably one thing. And then you maybe decide, okay, who is more comfortable running that kind of offense or teaching that kind of an offense?
I think if they end up with 8 or 9 wins, or it's a good looking 7-5, they play better and the offense gets better. Isn't asking the defense to hold teams to 10 or less. I don't think you're going to see change. You might see more handed off to Glenn Thomas, but I don't know that you'll pin it on Sat year 2 and move on from him, especially if you see more explosiveness in the tight end room. If you see more from Fedoni, I mean, Rule's super loyal. That's all right. And I know we've had the loyalty discussion, but let's just see what they do on offense. Let's see if they find a rhythm. And to your point, Gary, about do you want to be a pro style, do you want to be a power run team? You can be a power run team and a pro style, but you better have a bunch of offensive linemen that go to the NFL.
You're Ohio State.
Yes.
So you have to have the wide receivers to go along with the offensive linemen. Then you have to have that stud running back.
Yes. And right now you're in search of a lot of those missing pieces. You've got the quarterback.
And yes, there's missing pieces, but as it stands right now, like, in order to get a win, Nebraska's defense has to hold the opponent under like 17 points. That's where it stands right now. That's not a sustainable model for success. Does it look different with different pieces? Maybe. Maybe we've been spoiled here because we've seen what the Husker defense has done in 2 years under Tony White, and you sit there and you say, why isn't the offense done it? Whenever Tony White walked into a group of guys on defense that already somewhat fit the style of defense he wanted to play. So maybe it kind of shortens our leash with the Husker offense. But as it stands right now, I mean, being forced to look at your defense and say, hey, go out there and be a top 10 unit, that's how we get a win. That's where I look at things and I say,
I look at, listen, the screen game, the power run, all of that. If it gets executed, it can work. Okay. And that's obvious. But when you're facing pressure like Nebraska has been, that's your answer. I mean, it's in the playbook for a reason. Other teams are calling it, i.e. Indiana, and kicking people's ass with it. So go do a better job at running it and executing it. So Gray Woman 79's checked in. Kurt is here. Steven says it's misting in Hastings. Sexy Grinch is here as well. Big Red Junkies, good to have you fellas in as well. Brian checks in. We'll take a timeout, and we'll get caught up with Brandon Vogel, 489-1240. If you're on your way to the stadium or on your way to tailgate spot to get a red beer or a Bloody Mary. Elijah, we've got a
You are pushing that Bloody Mary.
Oh, are you not a Bloody Mary guy?
I hate Bloody Marys.
You just haven't had the right one.
Oh, I went to a Bloody Mary judging contest for a guy that didn't like Bloody Marys. I'm good.
Okay. That's a big step for you, though. I mean, that was impressive for a guy who hates Bloody Marys. To go to a judging contest.
Yeah. My stomach wasn't the same for like months.
I don't hate Bloody Marys, but there is about 15 other beverages I would rather consume.
Vic in Denver checks in, says, hoping the boys have their Ohio State game on. Less than half the screen passes. We set the over-under yesterday at 6 screen passes called. You taking the over, the under?
I'm going to take the over.
All right. Over it is.
Because here, I'll tell you what. So this is the prevailing theme inside the walls of Nebraska, is that outside of 2 of them, the majority of screens that they called on last Saturday should have gone for positive yardage if everything worked together. My biggest problem is there's so much that has to happen for a regular screen pass to happen. And also, you got to be able to communicate it. There are a couple of times that I thought that the wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 for Nebraska did not know that they were going to run that play, which is a problem.
Yeah, it's communication.
Yeah. The communication needs to be better today for Nebraska if they're going to run the screens so that everybody is on the same page.
Well, and you saw it in Indiana where you had Nair go the wrong way with the quarterback. I mean, it's attention to detail, which is what you expect from a Matt Rule football team.
Yeah.
Wide receiver room better be stepping up their attention to detail and execution as you get into November.
So there's one play where there was a screen run to Banks that Dylan checked into that Banks never heard the check. So I don't know if they run screen passes today, if they're going to be called screen passes, not screens you check into. But also UCLA doesn't have the pass rush that Ohio State had, where you try to neutralize that.
Sure. A quick timeout. Brandon Vogel in the on-deck circle. Weekend edition of Hail Varsity. We're live here at the Single Barrel, where you can get a Bloody Mary, where you can get a beer, you can get a cup of coffee, you can get 200 choices of whiskey.
You can get 200 whiskeys.
You can get 200 whiskeys, and you get a big old steak, get some chops, get your feed bag on here inside the Graduate Single Barrel, where we're at. Pregame show, weekend edition, Hail Varsity continues here, Hail Varsity YouTube channel.
If you came across a child struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them? By their clothes, their age, the way they speak? Would you recognize a 13-year-old boy who gets into fights at school?
Not because he's a boy, but because he's hungry.
Or a 2-year-old girl who cries all night?
Not because she's sick, but because she went to bed without enough to eat.
Or maybe a 9-year-old boy who hopes their friend invites him to a sleepover?
Not for fun, just so we can have dinner.
Or a 15-year-old girl who goes for walks over lunch,
so her friends won't know she doesn't have anything to eat?
I am the 1 in 7 American children who struggle with hunger. Kids you pass by every day, but never knew were hungry. I am Child Hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 food banks strong.
Social Security is with you through life's journey from birth to retirement. As your life changes year to year, so do your needs. For over 80 years, Social Security has helped to meet your needs and is committed to improving access to the services that make a difference in your life. Today, you can verify your earnings, estimate your future benefits, apply for retirement, manage your benefits, and even change your address, all from the comfort of your home. Social Security's online services help put you in control with secure access to your information anytime, anywhere, allowing you to spend more time with family, friends, or simply just enjoying the day. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow. See what you can do online at socialsecurity.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
I was in the hospital with my son for 18 months. When he got injured, I wasn't prepared, but I knew I had to be strong.
When I was told about John's injury, I was in complete shock. I just remember rushing into his room and giving him a big hug and letting him know I was there.
These veterans and families are just a few of the heroes we serve at Homes for Our Troops. For thousands of severely injured veterans, everyday life is filled with barriers.
It was really the little things throughout the house. Counters that you can't roll up to. How to drag my wheelchair down steps.
I want to help, but he is so determined.
At Homes for Our Troops, we build specially adapted custom homes with features like wheelchair access, roll-in showers, and automatic door openers that allow them to function independently and focus on their recovery and family.
This house is freedom. It's hope. It's a new beginning.
This house has given me my family back.
To learn more, visit hfotusa.org.
This may sound like a typical high school basketball game being played on a Friday night in Nebraska. In fact, it's a crash course in cooperation and teamwork. It's a test of dedication, determination, and drive. It's character development in action. If you think high school sports are only about competition, think about this. High school sports can play a critical role in a student's overall education. In fact, studies show that students who participate in school sports are more likely to enjoy greater levels of achievement in their academic lives. At the same time, playing sports helps teach lessons not covered in the classroom. Lessons like tolerance, respect for the rules, and the importance of supporting your community. High school sports, a winning part of a complete education.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you. It's the weekend edition. Hail Varsity on the road here at the Single Barrel inside the Graduate. Dion has checked in, and you are right, Dion. Ohio State should be up 21-10 right now. Should be, would be, could be. You'll have Pete Thamel reporting that Hartzog and Hill may be a go today. We'll see with some of those participation reports that are on the way. Always participating from the counterread.com, the incomparable Brandon L. Vogels, where you follow him on Twitter. You catch him for all great Husker thoughts. Vogues, we will get UCLA and Nebraska in a moment, brother. You did an amazing biography with John Cook, Dream Like a Champion. That was nuts last night with Husker volleyball in Madtown. And standing O for John Cook and crew. I want to go there for 2 seconds because I'm sure you called it. You called a 3-0 sweep in Madison last night.
No, I don't. I don't think I can quite take credit for that one. I mean, this Wisconsin team ranked number 7. So instead of being like great, they're only very, very, very good. So they're a half step off of kind of what they've been previously. But still, you're going to their place, really tough place to play. It's been kind of a house of horrors for Nebraska of late. So I think the match really kind of changed in that first set. Wisconsin got up a little bit early, but Nebraska stayed within striking distance and was able to gut one out there. And once they did that, I thought they'd have a chance to kind of just apply a little bit of pressure and play with that one set lead. And anytime you can do that, you got a chance at a sweep against no matter who the opponent is. But Nebraska played really, really well. Undefeated in Big Ten play so far. It's starting to look like I know people would talk like this might be one of Cook's best teams. Like they're putting themselves in that sort of contention.
Is it national championship or bust this year for that Husker volleyball team?
Is it every year? I mean, it sort of feels like it, but I think at this stage, like, we've seen some seasons, the 2017 season, last year they won it, kind of had a little bit of a lull in the middle of conference play that they then credited with kind of forcing them to reset and be able to go all the way to the national title. So this would be a little bit of a different approach of kind of almost wire to wiring it. But, it's been a while since Nebraska's won one. It's been in contention, which is the important thing. You got to be in the hunt. before you could even kind of take a shot at that final match. But national championship or bust, it's getting closer to that if it's not there already.
I guess it just kind of feels like if you get to the end of the year and this team doesn't win a national championship, it would be a bit of a disappointment. Not in that it'd be a complete disappointment. I think you can still be happy with progress and understand there's a lot of young players on that team, but it would feel like a disappointment if the year doesn't end, at least in the national championship match, if not hoisting the title.
That's the simpler and shorter way to put it. I mean, if we're talking about this as maybe one of Cook's best teams, if not the best, like it's hard to have that designation without that final prize. So, and I do think that talk's merited based on what we've seen so far.
Brandon Vogel with his counter read, Hail Varsity Weekend Edition, single barrel inside the Graduate. Back here for Real Red Reaction, probably 6:30-ish or so. I'm
scheduled 6.
We'll say 6-ish for post game, but Nebraska knocking on that 6-win door. Stop me if you've heard this one, but I think energy is going to be key. There's good buzz, Vogues. There's good energy around the stadium. There's folks milling around. Folks are in a pretty good mood after a near miss in Columbus. Nebraska's said all the right things. They did a lot of the right things last week. And what are a couple of keys for you, or at least storylines for you? To me, I'm thinking my feel going into this is Nebraska is maybe finally ready for the moment where they just go play confident and well, despite the fact that there's that 6 cloud hanging over their head, that finish line. I don't think they're as worried. They're worried about playing well, but I don't think they're worried about not performing. Maybe last week got them past that block.
Yeah, maybe. And I mean, to hear your assessment that the mood seems to be good around the stadium, I think is pretty important. Rule said last week about carrying over the Ohio State performance, which of course you want to do that, but you never know until you actually see it. Like the good day at work version of this game for Nebraska is it looks like a lot of September where the Huskers get up early and they use that to their advantage. And I think they've got a shot to do that. And, having a fan base that maybe isn't on edge the way it was 2 weeks ago, and completely justifiably so, could help with that. Matchup wise, I think there's a lot to like here for the Huskers. Like that UCLA run defense is legit. Nebraska hasn't been running the ball all that well anyway, so it's kind of like, well, you'll take what you can get there, and it may not be much. But this UCLA team really struggles to kind of defend the short and intermediate passing game, and I think Nebraska has a chance to have a real advantage there. The other key number I'll be watching is just tackles for loss and sacks. This is a high havoc rate allowed UCLA offense. They can move the ball. They can throw it. Garbers is pretty good. It's just a matter of, will he have a clean pocket? Will he have people in his face consistently? How often do the Huskers get home? Because if they're able to do that, I think they have a chance to kind of win this one going away a little bit. It's just because UCLA's kind of weaknesses tend to match up with Nebraska's strengths in this one.
How does that 6.5 point line strike you? Because we were talking about this Thursday after your segment on the show. According to FanDuel on Thursday, 87% of the total bets in this game were on Nebraska to cover a 6.5 point spread. That's not the total monetary value. That's just the total number of bets, but that still seems like the public loves that 6.5. Captain saying now on a Saturday, it's up to 7.5, that line. How does that strike you, considering so many people around the country seem to think that Nebraska 6.5, 7.5, whatever that number is, seems to be a good value bet?
Yeah. When I saw it this morning, it was 7. So it wouldn't surprise me if it's up to 7.5. And that's closer. That's a number that makes a little bit more sense, particularly that 7.5, because you get over that key number, which makes it a little bit of a more difficult play if you want to take Nebraska. For it to be at 6.5 for most of the week tells me that for some reason there must have been some sharp money on the Bruins somewhere early, which, like, I'm no expert. We're all just doing the best that we can. But like I just said, when I look at this matchup, with the numbers that I tend to look at, like, there's a lot here that favors Nebraska, and I don't feel that way very often. It's usually not this stark, so that gives me pause that it stayed at 6.5 for a little bit, because sharp money is sharp money for a reason. And and that's the thing with looking at these lines, which I like to do. I think it's useful information, but like public money doesn't move those a whole lot. It's the guys who the sports books are well aware of that tend to move those lines. And for Nebraska to go under 7, well, when I saw it at Circa on Sunday, it was at 9. Maybe that wasn't where it actually was, but it was a sharp early move to UCLA, which surprised me quite a bit. So it gives you pause of like, does somebody know something?
Brandon Vogel with us. Few minutes. Hail Varsity here at the Single Barrel inside the Graduate Weekend Edition, noon to 2 today. Nebraska and UCLA, a packed house here at the Single Barrel. Folks are getting their pregame hydration. The breakfast buffet was incredible, and you're invited out here. Real Red Reaction follows 6-ish to talk Nebraska-UCLA postgame thoughts. So we look at Nebraska's run game. We know the Bruins only allow about 98 a contest. What's a good running day for Nebraska? Because, sack adjusted, they went for about 100.5 against that Ohio State front. Do you feel like this offensive line, this running game is maybe going to be a story here in November? It's an important story, but it'll be a good story if you're a Nebraska fan. I want to see him do that again. I want to see him go for 140, 150 or more. I think it's important to the offense to give that balance, but also that wear down factor.
Yeah, I think the wear down factor is still a big piece of what Nebraska hopes to do and how it hopes to win these games. And we saw it a little bit against Ohio State. I mean, the Buckeyes ran 44 plays, 42 plays, something like that. So even against a talented opponent like that, Nebraska seeing a little bit more room in the run game in the second half last week tells you that, you can even wear down some teams like that. So back to the good day at the office analogy, like if Nebraska gets that sort of game where similar to Rutgers, don't even talk about like something that was the maximum in terms of great starts, like Colorado, just Rutgers. Nebraska was up 14-0. It was able to kind of do what it wanted. Had the lull in the second half offensively, which remains an issue that I don't think Nebraska's fully solved yet. But if you can get that, you've got a real chance for a run game, even against a good rush defense, to just kind of take its toll and find a little bit of room. So if Nebraska were to be up around 100 yards, like anything over 100, I would consider kind of gravy. If it can be at 100 and if they can throw the ball, like I think they should be able to in this one, that's probably pointing to a Nebraska win.
Brandon, you've talked plenty here both Thursday and today about how a lot of the numbers, a lot of the stats seem to favor Nebraska in this football game. Let me ask you, if it does all go wrong for Nebraska today, if they can't get to 6, what are some things you're going to be watching for in terms of if they can't check this box, things are going to go poorly for them?
Yeah, I mean, if the passing game, if the completion percentage is lower than what we'd expect, I mean, I would project Dillon probably close to 70%, which we've seen him do in previous games. In this one, probably 70%, like close to 300 yards. If we're being real about it, I mean, the reason I say that UCLA, it's good at limiting the big pass plays. Its success rate against passing plays is second to last nationally, the worst of any power conference team. Like they'll just give up completions. So a real sign of trouble, like if this game gets sideways, is if you're 2 quarters into this and it's like, boy, Raiola isn't having one of his best days. Like any interception is an issue, I think. Dropping that completion percentage or just missing guys, making the tough choice instead of taking kind of some of the easy throws would be a sign that maybe UCLA is gonna have a better shot in this than I would think on paper here an hour and a half before kickoff.
Bogues, how do you anticipate the fan base's reaction today about 6:15 if it does get done and Nebraska ends the drought. Is this shocking for you? Is it surreal for you the last 8 years, sorry, to be talking about this? That hey, they're not bowl eligible. Like there's been a bad season here or two, but they've been so close going back to 2019, and they've been really close under Rule.
Yeah, I mean it's not shocking if you just keep it to Nebraska, because when you think about those teams, like maybe 2021, the 3-9 team, like you could look at that and be like, oh, that was definitely a bowl team. They just didn't get there for whatever reason. And they were 3 games away based on how bizarrely that season unfolded. But the other ones, it's kind of like, yeah, you got to make plays to get to 6 and get there. So this is a team that I feel right now very much is good enough to play in the postseason. Now they just got to go out and actually do it. It does start to feel crazy when you look at it in the national context, though, and see that, every other power conference team has been to a bowl game in that stretch. I think there's only 2 like G5 teams that haven't been to a bowl game or have a longer bowlish streak than Nebraska. And that really puts it in context of just how rough these past 8 years have been. So this is a big one. Like, I think how would the fan base feel at 6:15? I think a pretty good amount of elation. Not for just being like, okay, well, at least we've got Detroit, maybe Nashville, something in the cards here, no matter what happens. But from here, I think then Nebraska really has a chance to just go play free, like get that box checked, and then go out, and you have 3 games left to like show definitively that there was a big jump from year 1 in Matt Rule to year 2. Because at this stage right now, it looked that way early. I'm not quite ready to say there's been a big jump. So checking that bowl game box, I think, gives Nebraska its best chance to go out and say, hey, here's who we really were in year 2.
Is making a bowl game more important for the team, their mentality, getting those extra practices, or the mood of the fan base? What do you think is more important for like who's going to be happier for making a bowl game, do you think?
Yeah, probably the mood of the fan base. When you look at when you try to fast forward things and think about like what's the off season like, just at least coming off of a bowl game, because that becomes like the bottom line. Like even if they were to go to 6-6, and I would consider 6-6 a disappointing year for this team with what Nebraska had. Like the bottom line will be, well, made it to the postseason, so let's just move forward from there. And that's a totally fair point of view. From a team perspective, yeah, I think they'd be happy. I think particularly for those old guys who've been through this entire stretch without having that opportunity, it becomes pretty big. And the way Rule put it this week kind of really opened my eyes a little bit of basically likening it to a second spring ball. That's a big deal for a team that's still as young as Nebraska is.
As many teams that go to the postseason, it has been weird to be, by your own doing, excluded for so long. And it's been taken for granted by a lot of us that have covered the team or grown up with the football team. And it's just been a comedy of errors, quite honestly, with close ball games and right there. And I just think from a mentality standpoint, they're ready to stay grown up versus pick and choose when they want to play grown up. And they played grown up or played the adult last Saturday. They clearly didn't 2 Saturdays ago. So UCLA. Real quick, folks, before we get you out, concerns about UCLA. How does this thing we talked about the bliss of getting bowl eligible and really hunting in November to be as good as you can be. Let's talk about the concern here. What do you find dangerous about this UCLA football team? I know 2 of their front dudes are pretty tough on the interior defensively, but offensively, I mean, just ballpark it. What do you think of the Bruins?
Yeah, I mean, that pass game is legitimately dangerous. I thought Garbers, last year, kind of split time with a high-profile 5-star and was clearly clearly better when you looked at the numbers, kind of big picture wise. And he's been good this year. As I put it in the preview this week at Counter Read, like his numbers are basically equivalent to Raiola's at this point. Or close enough anyway. Now, granted, he's a fifth-year senior and Raiola's a freshman. You got to factor that in. But he's been pretty good. This is still a UCLA team with a lot of California talent. So they've got some guys at receiver that can scare you a little bit, and they spread the ball around, which is always another big part of a challenge. But their best foot forward, though, as you mentioned, is that defensive front. And I also think that the three linebackers are really good, particularly against the run, which is part of why you're seeing them have the success they have against opponents' ground games. So we got some playmakers in that front seven. And when you have that, a couple of negative plays can dead end a few drives. And that's been the thing for Nebraska, is having to go on these marches consistently. It's tough to do if you're giving up negative plays, and the Bruins have the guys in the front seven to do that.
Bogues, tell us about Counter Read as we say goodbye, bud. Appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, Counter Read, twice weekly newsletter from myself and Aaron Sorensen. You can subscribe for free and check us out for a 7-day free trial, or just read the free posts if you're interested. We also have 2 exclusive newsletters for paid subscribers. Paid subscribers also get access to the game day chat, which I just flipped live before hopping on here to talk through some of the stuff we're hearing pregame and talk about Tommy Hill news. I'll believe that when I see it, but would be a good thing if he's able to go. So if you want to check that out, you can hop on over there and head to counterread.com, and that'll get you pointed to our game day chat. They've been pretty good, pretty sane, but real conversations most of the time. So I've really enjoyed them.
I love it. Vogues, we'll check in with you next week. Appreciate you as always, bud.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks.
All right. There he is, Brandon Vogel. Mark Cranack is here.
I got nothing in my ear.
Nothing at all?
Nothing in my ear.
You should hear me, Mark.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hear this guy.
I've done you a favor. You have to
that's
hear
good.
me.
I don't have to hear you like in studio, like in stereo.
Yeah,
That's
I
what
know.
You're saying. Okay.
It's a win.
We can deal.
A quick timeout. I know you just got here. Quick timeout. Pay some bills. And we'll be back. Weekend edition of Hail Varsity, winding down hour 1 here at the Single Barrel, KFOR, KFORnow.com.
Hello, I'm Jose Hernandez, and I have been using a wheelchair since my accident in 1995.
My name is Andrea Dalzell, and I've been using a wheelchair since I was 5 years old.
I guess if I had one message for the general public, it would be that I appreciate your help. But please, ask first.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that I've actually got everything under control.
I think people get nervous. They don't know how to act, so they pretend I'm not there.
What probably bothers me the most is when waiters talk to my companion and not directly to me.
I think everyone with a disability can relate to that parking spot problem.
We know you're just parking in that disabled spot for a second, but please, don't. We're just looking for the same respect and consideration as everyone else.
The United Spinal Association is dedicated to enhancing the quality of life of people living with spinal cord injuries and disorders. Download our disability etiquette booklet at unitedspinal.org.
On the battlefield, there's a saying America's military men and women live by. Never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Off the battlefield, Wounded Warrior Project operates with the same goal. We leave no warrior behind. Wounded Warrior Project is a non-profit organization created to help our men and women returning home with the scars of war. Whether those scars are physical or mental, we're here to make sure that they heal. And whether it's helping those with post-traumatic stress disorder live a normal life again, or giving much-needed support to injured warriors in veterans' hospitals, because no one deserves our help more than the men and women who risk their lives to keep us safe. Wounded Warrior Project. We never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Learn more about what we do at woundedwarriorproject.org.
Donors choose. Support a classroom.
Build a future.
Did you know that every year, public school teachers spend nearly $500 of their own money for student supplies? Let's do the math. That comes out to over $1.2 billion a year. And that's just not right. At Donors Choose, we want students and teachers to have the tools they need for a great education. And now, more than ever, they need your help. Here's what you can do. Go to donorschoose.org and choose from teachers' requests that support reading, math, science, history, and more. Once the request is funded, we'll take care of shipping everything directly to the teacher. It's that easy. You'll receive thank you letters and photos from students and teachers and a report of how every dollar was spent. Teachers' needs have never been greater. Learn more at donorschoose.org.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you here at the Single Barrel inside the Graduate Weekend Edition. Hail Varsity is Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal. Mark Cranack is here.
You just booting him out of the shot?
Well,
I'm getting my
He's
own
got his
here.
computer.
I'm getting my own shot here.
Shot.
Yeah, man.
Ready to shoot, Jack. Name that movie.
Happy Gilmore.
No. Boogie Nights.
Never seen it.
Probably goes without saying, but I should log in without audio on here, right? Because see how I put two and two together there? That's great. All right.
Captain's asking, will Singleton have a big game? The production report / availability part of things, Mazuka is questionable today. So we've got a couple of minutes here before we get to ABC News, and then we'll bring you into hour two. 489-1240. You want to jump in here on KFOR, KFORnow.com. Malcolm Hartzog, questionable as well. But I'm interested in some of those new faces in the secondary, Elijah. I'm interested here also when it comes to Nebraska, that lull part of things. The lull that you've seen from Nebraska's offense from time to time. Can that lull go away in November? You're not always going to be perfect, but you're going to be you need to be more consistent on offense, and Nebraska found a little bit of rhythm in the second half.
Yeah, that they did. All things we can talk about next hour as we're up against it here.
Are we needing to get out now? Forgive me.
About 15 seconds.
Okay. So
good. I got about 8 seconds worth of content to share, and it really has to do. Thank you. I was trying to match
it's on
Elijah.
Men's Clothes where you get that.
So I got 3 more seconds of content to lay out. I guess we'll have to get to it later. I didn't even get to it.
Hour 2 on the way here at the Single Barrel.
Equal opportunity, especially in the workforce, is the cornerstone of the American dream. Being employed gives us the confidence to be financially independent. There's real meaning in supporting ourselves and those we care about. We feel respected, useful, even empowered to become leaders. But what if you were one of the 6.5 million people in the U.S. with an intellectual or developmental difference, such as autism? 81% of adults with developmental differences don't even have a paid job, and only about a third of the public believes they're capable of having leadership roles. Now is the time to change that. Join the SunTrust Foundation in supporting Autism Speaks, Best Buddies, and Special Olympics in creating pathways to 1 million employment and leadership opportunities for this talented community by 2025. Together, we can build a broader workforce for the future. Visit deliveringjobs.org to learn more.
ADHD. It's the child who can't pay attention or sit still in school, right? The answer may be yes. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, can be complicated and it can last a lifetime. Living with a condition can sometimes be a challenge. It may take years to accept a formal diagnosis, and it's not always easy to find the right treatment plan. Did you know that up to 75% of children and adolescents with ADHD have at least one additional mental health condition that also requires a comprehensive approach to treatment? ADHD guidelines were recently updated to reflect the need to screen for associated disorders. Be sure to talk with your child's doctor about proper screening and visit more2adhd.com for additional information. That's more2adhd.com. This message has been brought to you in partnership with ADA, ACO, and CHAD.
This is your station for local news, talk, sports, and weather. FM 101.5, 1240 AM, KFOR, Lincoln.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. More than 70 million Americans have already cast ballots in early and absentee voting. Presidential candidates this weekend making a final push to reach undecided voters in battleground states. Donald Trump holding a rally in Gastonia just outside Charlotte.
We're just 3 days away from the greatest political victory in world history, but it only happens if you get out and vote.
Vice President Kamala Harris also heading to North Carolina, but first holding a rally in Atlanta.
And Georgia, we have an opportunity in this election to finally turn the page on a decade of Donald Trump, who spends full time trying to keep us divided and afraid of each other.
Running mates Tim Walz and J.D. Vance, both in Nevada and Arizona today for events. Some other states could also be in play. ABC's Mary Alice Parks says New Hampshire, typically a blue state, could be closer than usual.
It's a small state, only 4 electoral college votes. But if Trump were to flip that state, it could actually open up a whole bunch of paths for him. Now, I talked to the chair of the New Hampshire Democratic Party this week. He told me that he was sure Harris is fine there, but I am still wondering if there are some surprises out there for us next week.
In Kentucky last night, a jury issued a verdict in the federal trial of an ex-Louisville police detective involved in that botched raid that resulted in the death of Breonna Taylor in 2020. Here's ABC's Jay O'Brien.
The jury finding former Louisville police officer Brett Hankinson guilty of using excessive force during the raid on Taylor's home, firing 10 shots through Taylor's apartment. But that same federal jury acquitting Hankinson earlier in the evening of violating the civil rights of 3 of Taylor's neighbors who were in nearby apartments during the 2020 raid.
You're listening to ABC News.
This statement has not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
I was always tired with weekly bouts of indigestion. A friend asked me, when was the last time you did a detox? Never, I said. So she recommended Active Liver.
Our liver works hard every day to remove toxins from processed foods and unclean air and water. But too many toxins can overwhelm the liver, causing it to actually store toxins in our body fat. Low energy, brain fog, headaches, bloating, and skin irritation are all telltale signs that we need to act. Water or juice fasts can help, but often require days or weeks of feeling tired and sick. Thankfully, there's an easier way. Active Liver from New Nordic is a natural supplement that helps your liver effectively eliminate toxins on a daily basis, leaving you feeling better with more energy and less bloat.
Within a week of taking Active Liver, I was feeling better, and now I have more energy than I've had in years.
Available in both tablet or delicious gummies, you can find Active Liver online at Amazon or NewNordicUSA.com or in stores at your local CVS or Meijer Grocery.
An arrest for a child sexual assault. I'm Jeff Modes, KFOR News. An arrest has been made due to some recent sexual assaults over the past 2 months. According to Lincoln Police, 31-year-old Scotland Atkins has been charged with first-degree and second-degree sexual assault of a child and intentional child abuse. On October 25th, police were called to Mickle Middle School about a child sexual assault where a 12-year-old girl said Atkins had shown her a porn video and touched her inappropriately. A 13-year-old girl was a witness. Read more at KFORnow.com. A reminder to set your clocks back an hour tonight before you go to bed. It's daylight savings time, and a good reminder also check your smoke alarm batteries, according to LFR Public Information Officer MJ Lerman.
Make sure your friends, family, elderly are checking those, because we just want to really make sure everyone has one.
Lerman says a lot of times if your smoke alarms are beeping, it means that you need to change the battery. A reminder that after the Nebraska-UCLA football game, join us on KFOR and our social media pages for the Real Red Reaction Show, brought to you by Slim Chickens. Rain likely for game day today, a high of 61. I'm Jeff Modes, KFOR News.
Mom, Dad,
Before you throw out those unused medicines, just think for a minute.
Grandma, Grandpa, all you guys take meds. That's why you gotta dispose of your old pills correctly.
Those pills for your back pain or migraines.
When you throw them in the trash, those medicines can become lethal in the wrong hands. Our hands. You may be finished with that medicine,
But those pills are making me real popular at school.
my brother James could think they're candy. Our dog loves to get in the garbage, and those meds can make him sick or worse. So stop. There are better ways to dispose of your unused meds.
There are lots of police stations, local pharmacies, and hospitals that are approved to take in unused meds and dispose of them safely. Disposal sites are close by.
It's easy, and it's the right thing to do. For us. The ones you love.
To find a medicine disposal site near you, visit
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbal.
It's hour 2, weekend edition. Hail Varsity is here. There's that touchdown pass from Will Howard to Ibuka. The old pin and pole play. Ohio State looking glorious after being down 10-0.
Ibuka caught it? Ibuka caught it?
Fumble in end zone is what they said.
No.
Earlier.
So.
Oh, that was earlier. Sorry.
I was driving. So second half is starting. Ohio State will get the football. Nebraska reveling and being one of very few teams to go into Columbus and scare the bejesus out of OHIO.
There's a couple times they've done that too.
Yes.
And 2018 2018 would have been the other one.
Adrian's freshman year. So you could have Ohio State when they were down 10-0 up 21-10. So Jordan says, I apparently missed the memo on wearing the beanie. Jordan, it is when I got out of the shower and got my hair all done. It's a glorious hair day for me.
Well, I mean,
to be
when
fair,
is it not?
Schmitty's also going to be pampered in the press box. Mark and I are sitting outside.
Pampered.
Yeah, exactly. Be sitting there
pampered.
Getting little chair massages and all that. The rest of us are out there with the working people. I like how it's gray today too, Elijah. Like I'm trying to blend in to the overcast skies like you are.
Yeah.
Like that's going to be an advantage, right? Like when receivers are looking back, trying to get a ball and all they see is gray. It's going to be difficult. It's going to blend right in. That's not true whatsoever, but we're just going to go with that. Did have to stop and get some rain gear, though, because did you all see at 2 o'clock it is literally a 100% chance of rain? You very rarely see that.
What app are you using for your weather service?
It was on my Google Pixel. I got a Google Pixel.
I am a big weather bug guy with my weather forecasting.
Okay.
It's to me the most accurate, and it's giving me 40% chance at 2, 50 at 3, 40 at 4, and then lower chances through the later part of the game, and then we jump up to 60% at about 8 p.m. tonight. That's what I'm seeing.
Okay, so
it's disappointed that it
sprinkled out.
How are you going to look on an app where it literally said, 100%? It's just like it's raining at 2. Like just take it to the bank. Now you're saying, okay, great. Okay, great.
You have all the different.
That's awesome. Glad we stopped at the outlet malls to pick up rain gear for Junior here.
At least you went to the outlet mall.
I mean, yeah. That's why I'm late.
No, you're good. How you feeling today? Eligible. Nebraska carrying it over, carrying it on. Arizona Husker, we love you, brother. Thank you. And you are right. Perfect weather in Arizona.
Now, I don't know. The thing about today, like normally the temperatures, the wind that's expected to be happening, the precipitation that may or may not happen, we'll see. Normally you would say that, that absolutely favors Nebraska, right? The issue though is that Nebraska has not been able to run the ball consistently, right? So it's definitely an advantage if that's the case, and if for some reason the passing game is taken away. So that that could even it out a little bit. That said, UCLA can't run the ball either, and Nebraska's strength is stopping the run. So even though Nebraska's not great at running it, you can't say they're better than UCLA. And so if you're able to just churn up some clock, kind of play a little ball control, again, that's if the passing game is taken away. And if you're going to have 20 to 30 mile an hour winds and rain, the passing game is going to be obviously compromised, right? And you just hope that Satterfield and the brain trust that is calling plays takes that into account. Because I don't feel like they did in some cases. Was that against Rutgers when it was like 30 mile an hour winds? Something like that?
It was a windy nightmare.
It didn't feel like the wind was really taken into account that much, and you're still calling plays where the ball is traveling, 40, 50 yards in the air. Of course it's going to, So either way, let's see. What's good, Mark? Part of the best youth baseball team. That's right, Naru.
All
What is
right.
up, my man?
I like the shout out.
He ain't lying. Now listen, this 13, 14-year-old team we were on was 57-11. Right? That's a lot of games, first of all. Buddy Carlisle was one of our pitchers who went on to play for the Reds, Padres, Dodgers.
Does he still take your calls?
Or not Dodgers, Reds and Braves. I don't know if he would or not. He probably would. He's a good dude.
Okay.
Was it one of those youth baseball teams where it was just like, hey, we got one good pitcher, just march him out there every single game, 300 pitches per weekend to go get that title?
We had other good ones too, though.
Okay.
I mean, 57-11, right? Like, hello. What's good, Naru, man? Nice to hear from you. And what is this? What is this comment that came on there where it's Kranak always coming in and peeing on our Cheerios? How is that? How is that peeing on Cheerios?
No.
When I say like, I think I'm getting a bad rap here.
In bad weather.
I think I'm getting a bad rap here.
Black Hills Brennan's a good dude. You've met him here before. I think.
know Brennan's a great guy. I'm not peeing on the Cheerios by pointing out the fact that Nebraska's not a great run team. UCLA is not a great run team, and if weather is a factor, hopefully you call plays commensurately with that weather.
Big Red Junkies says, "Yep, Ohio State already 105 yards rushing. They'll have maybe a half-yard gain there or a loss of one. So Nebraska's job, though, is to come out and set the tone defensively, continue to improve offensively, and put your guys, i.e. your quarterback, in position to succeed, whether it's a screen pass that's called.
God. I heard y'all open the show with that, by the way.
Or
driving
a run,
in.
or
I'm
a run, or
I'm
a
peeing
run
on Cheerios.
play.
Y'all are talking about screen passes. My God.
Yeah, we went there. Sorry, but no, I'm anxious to see the offense continue to be part of this evolution where they find some things that work and get good at it, because there were some moments against Ohio State where the offense did answer. They got points. They drove the football. Field goal went 3 for 3. You want 7s, not 3s, but at least you're getting 3 now. And then you actually went up in the 10:54 left with a hell of a touchdown drive. That drive to go up 21-17. You go up 7. What was it? To go up 17-14. There we go. Was great. I mean, you had a pass interference call. Shocker, right? They tackled one of the wideouts, but they found Fedoni. There's a couple of 12 and 19-yard runs by Dowdell.
Let's be clear. Do you know what Nebraska did on that drive upon rewatching it that made it successful?
No.
Perimeter downfield blocking. You had it on the Fedoni catch. You had it on that Dowdell run. Like, Nebraska had perimeter downfield blocking on that drive.
Who was on the field doing that blocking, or was it rotation?
I would say Lloyd and Barney.
Yes,
I'm going to bet money.
Lloyd and Barney both did well. There was one key block from Jamal Banks, if I remember correctly, on one of those running plays. Those are the ones that stood out to me, but like especially Barney downfield. He had a great downfield block on Dylan Ryle.
Did he really?
Another great.
The two smaller wideouts are the best two blockers.
Yeah, Raiola's downfield run, he had a great block, and then Fedoni's catch and run on that drive as well. He had a great block as well.
That's an interesting detail to pick up on, because Barney being the smallest guy on the field and a true freshman, you kind of wouldn't expect that he would have either that attitude or that ability.
It's a statement about the two transfers you brought in.
Yeah.
And they're 1-2.
Which kind of goes against everything we heard about them, right? Everything we heard about Jamal Banks' work ethic and how he's sort of the elder statesman and has brought the guys together.
Bring the room together.
Seen as a leader. And that stuff might all be true, right? It might all be true. And then that's why I guess it's been so confounding that that's the guy on the perimeter that just whiffs all the time on screens. Like, just period. He just whiffs. Which, if you think about that position too,
it's not easy, but they're Division I players with NFL aspirations.
True.
Make some blocks.
Short area quickness is important in that scenario, though, right? Banks is a really limber, long guy, and you wouldn't say he's super quick, right? He's just not. He's athletic, but not necessarily quick, and maybe it's just a bad matchup and not a good role for him. But then again, you can't telegraph it by just putting in an offensive lineman out there at wide out and just saying, no, we're not doing a screen.
One of the things, and I won't go too long in this because I don't consider myself
a wide. Elijah, I can't hear him.
Can't hear me? Oh,
now I got you.
Okay, I was gonna say I'm not sure that's a connection thing or what that is. It's yeah. I didn't change anything on my end. I will say I am not a expert with perimeter blocking, wide receiver blocking by any means, so I don't want to say too much about this. But I have my doubts about the technique of Jamal Banks with his blocking. When he gets like a lot of extension with his arms, he's always leaning forward with his blocking, which I don't know. I was never a high level Division I athlete. But that technique seems wrong to me whenever you compare it to what guys in the NFL do when you see other college teams. Like typically space in blocking is the enemy of being a good blocker. Like that gives the defense a lot of things to do, fighting the hands, getting a guy off balance. I have my doubts about it, but I'm no expert, so I don't want to throw stones not knowing what I'm talking about. But I do have my doubts there with how he, from a technique point of view, handles his perimeter blocking.
Yeah,
love this from Andrew. Where's IGC at receiver? I know he's been the guy catching punts and kickoffs, but I would love to see this as well. How about you try somebody else that maybe can get it done if you're hell-bent on calling it?
Not the first guy that comes to mind. For me, the first guy that comes to mind that I think is a weapon with the ball in his hands and has the size to be able to block on the perimeter is Carter Nelson.
Yeah.
It's one of the guys that comes to mind for me. I know he's a freshman, so it's how much can he handle, but I think you got to find ways to get him onto the field because he's got the
he's aggressive too, right? Aggressive player. You know, up in the stream too, it's like, hey, what about Malachi Coleman? Will we see Malachi?
That'd be nice to see him today.
It has been interesting just how quiet it's been around Malachi Coleman compared to when he was here last year as a true freshman and he was thrust into playing time. And when it came to blocking, I wouldn't say it was consistent all the time, but there were more than a few times that Coleman drove his dude out of bounds.
He's physical.
Yeah, physical and very willing blocker. This is a question in the stream about whether or not we could see Malachi. I've just been surprised by how little we have heard about him. So, right, and I don't know if he's coming back from injury or what's happening.
The thing that I think about with Malachi is he has missed time. He had missed spring. Parts of different time periods.
He was banged
trying to get healthy.
Banged up early in fall camp as well this year.
Yeah.
And it seems the plan from the start was to have him a redshirt season. I know he's been on the field for one game so far this year in a special teams role. So you wonder, do you want to get him to 4 or is it just a keep him on the shelf and avoid injury type season for him? But the plan all along was to have him redshirt this year.
Yeah, remember that happened with Ty Robinson coming into last year too, where when you suffer that injury that close to the season, you miss out on so much conditioning, so much strength, so much.
You're not ready till halfway through.
Yeah, and you're not capable of playing a full game at that point. So right, maybe it's just like, hey, let's get you back in shape. We don't necessarily need you this year with the transfers we have came in that have a similar athletic profile to him and similar size. So I guess that makes sense. But I just feel like he was talked about so much as a recruit, and then even last year, and then it's just radio silent. So interesting to see if he gets maybe a little playing time down the road or down the stretch here, which that opens up a whole new situation. There's a handful of guys that we could see. If you look at the travel roster, I mean, some of the folks that went to Columbus to hang out with you two last weekend included Caleb Benning.
I love this crew of freshmen that have come from winning programs that are just they're football guys that you're going to sprinkle them in, see what they do, and then see how they grow from whatever their experience has been, good or bad.
Caleb Benning and I think a lot of Nebraska fans have had a chance to see him in high school because of how good Westside's been, how they've been in the state championship game.
Guy's a baller.
And he has shown up in those games, hasn't he? Mm-hmm. The thing that is interesting to me about how quickly his rose is, one, if you look at the secondary in general, that's a loaded – that Nebraska has not struggled, I don't believe, to recruit defensive backs for a minute.
The largest position group you have, 25 defensive backs.
Makes sense. And a lot of good quality talent, right? There's not a whole lot of guys where you're just like, oh, wow, super liability. So they have the luxury of having quite a few options and some good athletic body types there. So for him to kind of surge past a lot of those folks on the depth chart to make a travel roster speaks a lot for him. And when you watched him at Westside, I'm guessing here in some ways, but knowing his dad and knowing how he felt about Mike Brown, for the younger fans, Mike Brown was
Damon's favorite number,
but he was probably the best safety. I'm comfortable saying that. Best safety in Nebraska history. I can't think of. We've had some good ones.
Mike
Nebraska's
Brown,
had good
the
ones.
Rover, was incredible.
Right? Yeah, incredible. And the way he played, what was so interesting is, despite his size, when he would diagnose run, he is a bullet. He is a bullet right into that gap, making plays way earlier than you would expect the safety position to make, right? Because he diagnoses it, sees it, goes, boom, stops the guy in his and is okay with that collision. Because that's a serious collision when it's a running back with shoulders square, safety with shoulders square, and he's doing it almost before it gets to the second level. And that's what you see from Caleb Benning too, at least in high school. Is his willingness to diagnose, see it, go, make the hit, and not care about the collision at all. Be strong enough to pull it off. So
good name, Ken. Mike Minner. That tells you about how loaded Nebraska was, where the guy who followed Mike Minner was Mike Brown.
Exactly. Oh, and we had
that's now, 8 years of NFL.
Now, Minter was one of the more intimidating guys. Do you remember walking by him on campus?
Yep.
Okay, so
he would always utter, "Don't hang around that near that Cranack guy."
He would have the over-the-ear headphones,
sunglasses,
and he was just mad. He just looked mad. You know, you talk about RBF. This dude was walking around scowled, just like, and looking straight ahead. You're like, "Excuse me, sir. Okay, Mr. Mike, you can go that way."
Minard had the shades on, the backpack, a tank top, tucked into like jean shorts and a
great
belt.
Player too, great safety. So good point, Ken, bringing him up. Mike Minner and then Mike Brown.
We are finally aged, being able to say we went to school with Mike Brown, Mike Minner.
Lawrence Phillips was driving a Mustang. Must have been NIL. Must have been.
Or Missley.
Yeah. Something like that.
Our Cranack is here. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal. It's the weekend edition. It's Hail Varsity on the road here at the Single Barrel inside the Graduate. Pregame weekend edition. Excited to have you all here. Uncle Mark, Aunt Mel, and the crew came down. There's a lot of folks that are, what do you get? Did you get the patty melt? Yeah? Yeah, I got the patty melt.
Smart.
Well done. Okay. Brisket grilled cheese. That's good. Aunt Mel is eating a burger the size of my brother's head. It's pretty good. But we invite you down here for steaks, for chops. And you got a Irish whiskey.
I did. Yeah, it's a Jameson.
It's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
200 whiskeys to choose from.
Yeah. Yeah. I like other kinds of Irish, but Jameson is like sort of the go-to. That's the standard. Right? That's the standard. It's what started it all.
Okay.
Right.
Well, is it going to be throwback today for the Nebraska football team against a familiar team in UCLA, where that's what we grew up on? And Elijah, you caught a part of it as well, pre-Big Ten, where your non-conference team was UCLA. You get UCLA, and you got them in 2012 and 2013, Foster Farms Bowl in 15, but you had them in 93, 94. You had them in 87, 88. You had him in 72, 73.
Well, can I say the Nebraska UCLA uniform matchup, does it really matter? No. But it is a beautiful, beautiful uniform matchup for like the classic college football look. Like Nebraska UCLA, the light blue against the red. It is just so pretty.
I'm so happy you said that. I was mentioning the same thing, that it's a uniform game for sure. And it's when you look at like the teams that are legit, you can this may not be 100%, but it's close. If you're a player or one of the real kind of OG traditionalist programs, you have some pretty basic unis. You do not have cartoon characters on your helmet, right? Like name me one. Look at who you consider sort of blue blood or just on the outside of that. Traditionalist powers.
They're a blue blood brand.
None of them have like Louisville's got this cartoon cardinal, Johnny come latelys, whatever, right? Same with Oregon. I mean, come on. They got, different uniform every single time. Jayhawks, upstart. It's like a cartoon character on their helmet. if you're going to be legit, you kind of don't have that look, right? Is there a blue blood that gets just silly with their gear?
No, they shouldn't.
No, I mean, like the all-time winningest programs: Michigan, Notre Dame, Texas, Nebraska, Ohio State, Oklahoma, right? Traditionalist stuff, right? You don't have a lot.
USC never goes. Yeah,
No.
Good work, Jordan. Quick timeout. We'll dive into a couple of keys to victory for Nebraska. Key for this fan base to stay sane and let it loose. Start partying tonight if Nebraska gets to number 6, and that means bigger things for November potentially. Hail Varsity on the road here, weekend edition at the Single Barrel inside the Graduate on KFOR, KFORnow.com.
Braxton was diagnosed with choroid plexus carcinoma, a brain tumor. St. Jude is helping us put away our fears. We have an amazing team that fights for the best outcome for Braxton. He has the best chance here. I don't have to worry that how much is that bag of fluid going to cost me? Can I afford it to save my child's life? The donations, they're paying for me to live every day with my son, be stress-free, and enjoy every day with him. I wish there was a word bigger than thank you, more close to the heart, because thank you's not enough. They've given me hope. They've given me my son.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
To some people, the sound of a baby babbling doesn't mean much. But that's not necessarily true. By 6 months, they're combining vowels and consonants. By 9 months, they're trying out different kinds of sounds. And by 12 months, their babbling is beginning to take on some meaning. Especially if there's no babbling at all. Little to no babbling by 12 months or later is just one of the possible signs of autism in children. Early screening and intervention can make a lifetime of difference and unlock a world of possibilities. Take the first step at autismspeaks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
You know that feeling? Like every door is closing and you just can't see a way out? Being unemployed, underemployed, or just out of school feels a lot like that. But when you find the right tools, suddenly everything just clicks. Getting on that path may be easier than you think. A good place to start? Go to findsomethingnew.org. At findsomethingnew.org, you have access to resources that help develop new skills. Skills that will position you for careers in today's growing industries, from healthcare and manufacturing to cybersecurity and alternative energy. Plus, you can take advantage of online courses, certification programs, apprenticeships, and more. So you can take yourself from unemployed and uncertain to empowered and prepared for what's next. Find your path to a new career today. Visit findsomethingnew.org. A message from the Ad Council.
Before I was adopted, I felt like nobody wanted me. I felt like my life was already over.
At a certain age, they don't want you. You're troubled and stuff. Even if I wanted to be adopted, who would adopt a 17-year-old?
Inside, I knew, I'm not a troubled kid. I know what I'm in for, why I'm here.
My biggest fear was that I would age out and not know how to be sufficient on my own.
I had nightmares every single day at my birth mom's house. It was just really scary for me living there.
I was scared, I was lost, and I felt hopeless.
I felt like, don't I deserve to feel happy and loved?
I just wish I'd gotten adopted sooner.
Unfortunately, the number of children waiting to be adopted from foster care is on the rise. The Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption is the only public nonprofit charity in the U.S.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. Weekend edition continues on. It's Hail Varsity. KFOR, KFORnow.com. Back for Real Red Reaction. We'll be here a little bit after 6. Part of Fairbury, Bill Dolman will be part of Real Red Reaction. Elijah Herbal, myself, Chris Schmidt. Mark Kranek is riding shotgun along with Elijah as we're taking you up to close to 2 as Nebraska-UCLA gets rolling here. Guys, a lot of storylines, maybe some new faces in the secondary, more of a commitment and establishment of the run game for sure. What do you see from Dylan? And Elijah and Kranek, I want to start there. What do you anticipate from Nebraska's quarterback today? Because it's been a bit of a rocky October for him. He played well against Ohio State. Wasn't perfect, but you've seen some missed throws downfield. You've also seen him willing to run and use his legs a little bit to pick up some yards. And I thought you saw quite a bit of calm, to be honest with you, on that final drive. It didn't go his way with some of the screen plays, and Nebraska ended up turning it over on downs. But I didn't see a nervousness at all from him when he took over with 3:40 left. They went immediately downfield and kind of got jobbed on that offensive interference OPI downfield. But they went right away downfield after Ohio State for that game-winning drive. So I saw some positives last week. You need to see more positives, and Elijah, you need to see more help from the rest of the offense as well.
When you think about Dylan specifically, it's easy to forget that he's going through all of these things for the first time, right? He's 8 games in at this point. He's been on the road in a very hostile, big, historical environment. He's seen multiple looks. We also forget, too, just the act of playing in front of Memorial Stadium. Like, there's no practice for that, right? You can talk about the speed of the game and adjusting to, how it is to practice and all that, but just the environment alone, it takes a minute to get used to all that stuff. And, like, when you consider all that's been thrown at him, and especially how Coach Satterfield was like, we didn't hold anything back on installing our offense. We're throwing the whole thing at him. So he's adjusting to that. He's adjusting to living in college in the first place, adjusting to a new offense, adjusting to a very complicated offense, adjusting to former NFL coordinators coordinating defenses against him. He's adjusting to 90,000 fans. He's adjusting to different weather, adjusting to Nebraska's played 4 different left tackles this year, right? You lost your 2 top ones. We don't talk enough about that probably either with Nebraska's offensive woes, right? Gatula and then Mazuka have been filling in. So he has adjusted to a ton, right? And I think after you have gone through that, he seems like he was probably more comfortable last week than maybe we'd seen him in a bit.
Yeah, big time. Comfort was huge. And and they were, they were scoring. They scored some points. They weren't empty on the trips to the red zone.
Yeah. Yeah. And save for some wacky penalties. You can blame the refs, whatever. Very easily, save for maybe overthrowing a guy by 6 inches.
There's been like, listen, this is nitpicky. This sounds whiny, but there's 3 or 4 of those that he needs to hit, and I think he will hit, but he's just been short on for a long time, and it goes back, Elijah, to that Illinois game.
Well, there's a comment here from Captain saying it's all on Dylan today, win or lose. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I do think Dylan needs to make a couple winning plays today. I mean, you're a couple winning plays away last week from Nebraska taking that football game, whether it be down on the goal line, putting the ball in his hands, letting him go make a winning play, whether it's putting 2 less yards of error on that pass down the sideline to Jamal Banks on the wheel route, or the one to Barney. If you take a half yard of air off of that one and it's in his hands in the corner of the end zone as opposed to just off his outstretched fingertips, like the margin of error for Nebraska this season, especially against a team like Ohio State, but I even throw UCLA in there, any Big Ten team you play, the margin of error is thin in the Big Ten. That's just how it goes. That's how it is whenever you're a rebuilding football team. Dylan needs to make a couple of winning plays today whenever the opportunity is there to go take those moments and go take the game, go control it in that way, if you get what I'm saying. Like, you need to make a couple of winning plays. No, the offensive game plan is not on Dylan today. He does not need to go be a first-round pick for you today to go win this football game. But whenever he has his opportunities to go make a winning play, which I think he'll have them today, he needs to go out and he needs to take those opportunities.
And when you put it, by the way, when you think about Dylan being, 8 games in now, same with Ja'Cory Barney, same with Dowdell. Dowdell played very little at Oregon. Right?
Very few plays.
I'm just kind of realizing this now, actually. When you think about Nebraska's maybe more consistent top offensive threats, almost none of them they have no experience whatsoever. And they're going to be around for a minute. Think about it from that perspective, Nebraska's maybe a little more impressive. I think what's been disappointing is the performance of the veterans so far.
That's absolutely been it, because your defense is full of veterans, and there's a couple of games the defense didn't show up, and then offensively, your portal guys haven't been studs for you.
Specifically at wideout, right?
Inconsistent.
Yeah, you would have to say compared to maybe what you expected, and the fact that they vaulted to the top of the depth chart as starters, you have to say Nair and Banks have kind of underperformed what you expected. I don't think they've been terrible players. That's not what I'm saying, but I think you expected Banks to be a 5 catches, 80 yards a game, possession type guy, somebody you go to in the red zone. I think you thought about Nair as somebody that you get.
You can't just flat out disappear.
Right. And yeah, he went 3 games without a catch, something like that. That's been pretty limiting for the offense. Encouraging though that. I thought Dowdell, similar to how I thought Dylan looked maybe more comfortable last week than ever. Same with Dowdell. He looked a little less get the ball, I get ball, I run ball forward, I run into her human, right? Like he was actually acting like a running back a little bit, making subtle little shifts and trying to get around guys a little bit. Seemed to play with a little more instinct. I think I
just want more patience from him. Give me a little bit more patience before you. That's what I like about Emmett, Elijah, and Kranak is Emmett's ability to wait for about a count and a half, see where I need to cut, make the cut is there. Dowdell, though, from a size and a speed standpoint, he ripped off that 19-yarder. If he hadn't having to tight wire it, he could have gone and just make that one guy that's free on that counter miss. Cut it inside versus cutting it outside and pick up. I see the upside. Absolutely the upside with a guy like Dowdell.
And I see the value in the establishing the run from a mentality point of view of Dowdell, to use the old Marshawn Lynch quote, to go run through a mother effer's face. Like that's Dante Dowdell. He sets the tone for you from a physicality point of view. I understand why Matt Rule wants to play him in the first half of ball games, because he is a set the tone type runner where he's going to go to try to run through some guys, make him go stack the box. And then second half, you bring in a guy like Emmett that has the patience behind the line of scrimmage, that has that quick step after he makes his decision to go hit the hole hard and go pick up 5 or 6 yards that might not be there if you don't have a guy like Dowdell that is forcing the issue in the first half, being a physical force. It opens up things for a guy like Emmett or even a guy like Ramir in the second half. And I think if you have that establish the run type first half from Dowdell, where the defense has to appreciate the physical nature of Nebraska's offense, it's going to open up things for you downfield as well, which I think you're going to need to have 1 or 2 deep shots in the second half today to keep that defense honest and keep your rushing attack going in the second half. Because with the weather forecast, what it is today, you're going to need to run the ball and run the ball well. And I think you have that value. You've heard Matt Rule say it, that value from Dowdell going and trying to run through somebody in the first half and set the tone physically.
What are you guys certain about today? What do you think we see here in less than an hour from this Nebraska football team, and a team that in the world of college football has been week to week? What are you putting your money on? I'm thinking I'm going to continue to see great defense, but what I would bet on, what I would take a flyer on, is I think I'm going to see better run game. Defense is kind of off, I don't want to say off the table, but that's they're the known quantity. I think I'm going to see a better run game. I'm going to see an improved run game, despite what UCLA's rep is. I think that's one thing that's trending the right direction based on what I saw from Ohio State. I would put money on the run game. This sounds crazy, but I think the run game is something that I think maybe surprises pleasantly today.
I'd put my money on the defensive line picking up where they left off last week, because the defensive line hasn't brought it every single game this year. You look at Illinois and Indiana in particular as being two games they didn't bring it. I think they pick up where they left off. I think whenever Ty Robinson talks about elevating the standard, I think you specifically look at that defensive line. Jamari Butler, MJ Sherman, Ty, those guys. I think they elevated their own standard last week. I think they play to that standard again today. I'd put money on that defensive line having another really strong day today.
A healthy Jamari Butler is different.
It's different, yeah.
Is a different Jamari Butler. He was excellent last week. I thought I could see a breakout game for Ty Robinson, who seems to play pretty well at home for whatever reason. But he really does. He does really well at home. Not that he plays bad on the road, but he almost never goes ignored or unnoticed in Memorial Stadium. You know, he's a factor. So I think you could expect that from him too. And then MJ Sherman, absolutely.
He was
in
great
terms
last
of
week.
Yeah, his pursuit, his level of effort has been really good. And that's a difficult thing to coach. I feel like that mentality's taken hold a little bit defensively too, where Nebraska had some losses and some hurries and some short gains based off of pursuit, based off of actual hustle, based off of like, yeah, I'm probably not going to get that guy, but I'm going full speed anyways. Oh my God, I got the guy because he stopped, right? Sherman had a handful of those kinds of plays. So I like the effort level they're playing with. I would agree with Elijah that I feel like it's something you can take to the bank, especially since Jamari Butler is healthy. And I think that makes a huge, huge difference in terms of being able to create havoc plays. People trying, offensive lines, running backs, tight ends having to account for him.
TFL
which then
sacks,
frees up
it's
more
gotta
one-on-ones elsewhere, and it just feeds on itself.
It's Mark Cranack, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal. Quick timeout. We'll wind down this weekend edition with Hail Varsity. And you can also find us. Uncle Mark is asking little Tanner what the prediction's going to be. See you, Uncle Mark. Love you. But 89-0. Tanner Cranack says that's what's going to happen.
We'll take
give
it.
our final predictions as well. A quick timeout here as we continue on KFOR, KFORnow.com.
One in 3 adults has prediabetes. 1 in 3. That means it could be you, your football buddy, your football buddy, or you, your best man, your worst man, you, your dog walker, your cat jogger. While 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. That's doihaveprediabetes.org.
Wait, did they just say 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes? That's 33.33333% of adults. That means it could be me, my boss, or my boss's boss, or me, my favorite sister, or my other sister. That's 7 members of my 21-person romantic book club. Wait, the 1 in 3 could be me, my karaoke partner Carol, or my karaoke enemy Jeff. I'm going to take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
When it feels like the world has stopped, good finds a way. Good is happening, even now. Good connects us, even when we can't get close. Good never stops, and neither does Children International. With support from caring friends, we help provide children and families with the critical essentials they need. Essentials like food assistance, hygiene education, medical help, and financial support. To learn more, go to children.org/help today. Together, we can help end poverty for good.
Hi, I'm Tony Dungy. Our son Jordan needed the specialized care that only Shriners Hospitals for Children could provide, and it was incredible to see the love and dedicated care he received. Shriners Hospitals for Children is a healthcare system dedicated to improving the lives of kids with pediatric conditions.
Shriners Hospitals for Children is changing the world through caring for kids. Please give today at 1-800-241-4438 or at shrinershospitalsforchildren.org.
Our daughter Lee was born with brittle bone disease.
Thanks to Shriners Hospitals for Children, I can go to school, play, and do fun things like other kids. They've helped me so much. They're like my family. We need your help. Please donate today.
Shriners Hospitals for Children is changing the world through caring for kids. Please give today at 1-800-241-4438 or at shrinershospitalsforchildren.org.
At Social Security, we are always thinking of ways to save you time and make things easier. That's why we created My Social Security. Opening a My Social Security account gives you secure access to your personal record and interactive tools tailored for you. You can see if you are eligible to receive benefits, view spousal benefit estimates, and compare retirement benefit estimates at different ages or dates when you want to start receiving benefits. Already receiving benefits? Use your account to change your address, set up or change direct deposit, get a proof of income letter, and more. In most states, you can also request a replacement Social Security card. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back in here, pregame edition, Hail Varsity Radio. As Smitty makes his way back from the bar. Smitty, what'd you order?
It was in the can. I was going to the bathroom.
Yeah.
No, I was.
Number one and number two.
I went with my brother Mark.
Okay. Oh, that's good. You guys had a stream war or what? What happened?
He asked if
Like,
we
what
wanted
is
the sword fight. I'm like, no, we're not 5 again.
Dagger fight from the rumors I've heard. But whatever.
Short sword.
This is a knife.
My goodness.
That's so good.
I don't know.
Time 147. 147. When
Deb checks in. Deb,
that's
the
when it
spa
happened.
lady, saying hi. Deb, how are you? Deb's smiling about her Kansas City Chiefs and her Jayhawk basketball squad. We'd love Deb, the spa lady. She's the best. Walter.
Best last name. I mean, really.
Spa lady, yeah. Her last name's pretty awesome.
You know Jesus? Related?
So, guys, we've kind of wrapped up this ball game, and I don't feel the mood just with talking with folks and just the interaction all week. I don't know. I don't feel the butterfly level
right.
8.
Yeah, it's. I'm glad you mentioned that too. Of just sort of expectation going in, right? You went into Indiana, and I think fans were split. I was really worried about that game. That's where this negative crap's coming from. Just because of, like, seriously, the level of execution. When I was just, like, comparing them, I'm just like, dude, Indiana knows exactly what it's doing, and they do it full tilt. Like, Nebraska doesn't really know what they're doing yet, right? They're not firmly committed to any one thing. They're not executing anything offensively at a high level. So that was just, like, I thought a bad matchup in terms of just maturity of the two teams facing one another. Ohio State, I think we all expected, just the end of the year, basically. I seriously thought it was just going to be a drubbing and all confidence and all hope is lost. Was not like that. Great.
It was. You're going to your own execution last week.
Yeah. I think going into Illinois, we're not going chronological here, but I think people viewed that as a relative toss-up.
Mm-hmm.
I think people viewed Rutgers as a relative toss-up.
Sure. Today's kind of a toss-up, too, based on Vegas.
But it feels like it leans Nebraska only because, look, UCLA, similar to Nebraska not being your average 3-9 team back in 2021, UCLA is probably a little better than 2-5, just considering who they played.
They played well against that schedule.
And they haven't come close to winning necessarily, but they've played really tough teams, right? They have 3 undefeated teams. It has to be probably the toughest schedule in America. If not, it's close. I mean, and the amount of travel that they've had under a rookie head coach who's never been a head coach, right? There's a lot there that you wouldn't think they would be 6-1, but it doesn't mean they're not dangerous. They don't have good players.
What makes them dangerous is the fact that playing a lot of good teams can either get you down or you can learn from it and get better. And this UCLA team has seemingly learned from it and got better. They played Minnesota really tough, who Minnesota is playing good football right now. They went and beat Rutgers. I know their wheels have kind of fallen off for Rutgers since their loss to Nebraska. That's still a solid football team. It's not easy to go beat a Shiano-led football team, especially whenever you're flying cross-country to go do so. It's a good win for UCLA. They've gotten better. The danger with them is, as Ty Robinson said earlier in the week, they're playing with nothing to lose. They're playing with house money this week. Like, they can go play free in this football game because what happens if they lose? They've already lost 5 this year to some really dang good football teams. Like, it's no skin off their back if they've lost. They have good feelings coming into this one. They're coming off a bye. They should be healthy. Like, they get to go play free today and go be spoiler for Nebraska trying to get their 6th win. Similar to what Michigan State did last year. I know that was in East Lansing, but this game really has that kind of feel to me where it's all the pressure's on Nebraska. They're trying to get to 6. UCLA can play free, and they're a team that's gotten better as the year's gone on. They got to go show their improvements on a day like today.
Nebraska, I think, though, is welcoming the opportunity, the chance versus nervous about it.
You hope, right?
Well, I mean, they bounced back. They played the right way last week, and let's just see if they move forward and put it together. That's the other thing, man. Can you put a 4-quarter game together? We've said this every week, all year, it feels like. But I mean it. Can they take more steps on offense? Can they still be killer on defense? And can they be continue to be reliable on special teams?
Yeah, well, and especially John Hull, and what a turn of events for Nebraska. The fact that you now apparently, at least as of last week, have fixed your field goal kicking operation. And if you think back to Nebraska's close losses, let's take Illinois. Let's take even close wins against Rutgers. Indiana take off the table. You hope that is just an aberration, period. But you take any of Nebraska's, they have done that without field goal kicking, which is a fundamental part of Big Ten football, especially when most games are, I don't have this empirically, but I bet you if you averaged out, what is the average Big Ten margin of victory? What is that?
6.5.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, it's less. There's a lot of touchdown and there's a lot of 3-point, somewhere in that range.
There are a lot of 1-score games throughout the conference. That's not just Nebraska. It's just kind of how the Big Ten rolls. And to go through the first part of this season, essentially eliminating the layup, right? And it's like if the basketball team just eliminated finger rolls. Like you just can't do them anymore. No dunking, no layups, no free throws. Just like what? Like that, and that changes your play calling. That changes how you approach. While you have a struggling offense, by the way, while you have, your kind of your top 3 threats all being true freshmen going through it for the first time. While you have left tackle problems, like you better have a kicking game to compensate for that. Nebraska played without it for the first half of the year. I'm not saying John Hull arrived just because he booted 3 good ones against Ohio State, but that's a pretty damn good sign. That is a pretty damn good sign that you could roll into the horseshoe, which also, you think about kicking, you think about free throws, you think about it's a different sight line than he's used to, right? It's a different level of athlete that's coming after him, different crowd level. Again, also a true freshman that we're talking about. So for him to put 3 through the uprights and for Nebraska to now have the confidence that if they get to the 30 and the wind isn't prohibitive, you can kick it, right? You can kick a field goal. And so that comes at a huge time too. And Nebraska's if you had just that, Nebraska's probably 7-1 right now.
Could be.
Right?
And
Nebraska's probably maybe 6-2 because you had it against Ohio State and you still lost. But
think about margin of error, kicking plus a couple more Dylan Raiola throws. Illinois game, Ohio State game,
and his overthrows. Let's compare it to prior Nebraska quarterbacks that maybe struggled with completion percentage. In a lot of cases, they were significant overthrows. They were airmailing the ball, or they were 5 yards in front of these are not even a hand's length away. I mean, or in some cases, their fingertips. I mean, he's not far off at all.
His ball placement's been good enough.
Yeah.
And it's just been a lot of different things. It's been OPI. It's been just a fingernail away.
Do they keep stats on teams that have drawn the most pass interferences? I've never seen. Have you all seen a Nebraska team that's drawn this many?
Never.
No.
I don't know what those numbers are, but Nebraska has to be. I don't even know where you'd find that. You can't find that on CFB stats, I don't think. Maybe on a few others. Maybe there's probably a site out there that tracks it. Nebraska has to be in the top 10 in the country in terms of drawing offensive pass interference, right? I mean, it's a. And what does that say? Does that say that the design of the offense is actually pretty good? And that
I think the execution and the design and the play call and the expectation versus the result, that's the tug of war. We got to get predictions in.
Yeah, before we get out, quick note here. Malachi Coleman, Vincent Jackson, both not dressed or warming up today. I know we talked about that earlier, so I thought I'd throw that in.
Okay.
They're naked? That is disgusting.
That's wrong.
That is
give me a score.
Disgusting. The entire society's falling apart. That we're going to just accept that. I like Nebraska in this one in a relatively low-scoring game. I think you get 3 kicks out of the deal, and so I think that gets you to 23. Nebraska scores 2 touchdowns, 1 on the ground, 1 on the air. Tight one, though, 23-17, Nebraska.
All right, we'll be back. Real Red Reaction at 6 on KFOR. Thanks.
Oh, sorry, I took all the prediction time.